Arcane review impressions.
Spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers ahead. We will be going
both
deep into
season
spoilers.
1 and season 2. So
Yes,
that's something
exactly.
to keep in mind, y'all.
TNMP, the Nerdy Misfit Podcast, with your hosts, Connor O'Neill and Matthew Hughes.
Yo ho, yo ho.
Bottle of eggnog.
Bottle of eggnog, 'cause
Tis
it's
the
December.
season. It's December. How you doing today, man?
Yeah, it's good. It's a chill day. It's chilly, but no snow outside.
No snow.
I was listening to it's starting to look a lot like Christmas, and no, it's not.
No, it ain't.
But I'm okay with that. But yeah, here we are, Matthew. This episode was foreshadowed in our previous episode,
Yes, and foreshadowed a couple episodes before that as well.
which is this is our Arcane review impressions.
Spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers ahead. We will be going
both
deep into
season
spoilers.
1 and season 2. So
Yes,
that's something
exactly.
to keep in mind, y'all.
And we've been looking forward to this one, I think, because it's a case where you know nothing
No.
and you went in blind and just enjoyed the show. And I went in with knowledge, but I'm also going to call it very screwed up knowledge because that's just what Riot's
Lore.
lore has been, is a great big pile of mess. And this is kind of cleaning up at least segments of it as we go.
Okay.
But I'm interested to see what you think. I'm also going to go into some of the characters for Matt, which are in the video games, or because Arcane, if you don't know, is a animated series by Riot Games, who are the creators of League of Legends.
Yep.
If you don't know what that is, it's
Never heard of it.
It's a MOBA. It's a massive video game, and they also have other games now as well. There's Teamfight Tactics, Legends of Runeterra, which I think is actually being decommissioned, which was their card game.
That's good to know.
They have a fighting game coming out, and they also have Valorant. Valorant is kind of its own thing. It's not really involved in the League universe, but Matt's never played League, and I have played League, so kind of interested to see what elements we noticed or what we thought. A big thing I'll mention as we go. There are a couple things that when discussing the show with my friends that have played League, they made a point of being like, it's hard for us to know if that's because we know backstory and that's why we liked it, or if it's maybe good overall. So we'll get into some of those elements, but without further ado, we'll kind of dive right in. We don't really have any housekeeping for once.
Not that I can think of. Obviously, like we got. I mean, actually, I'll get out of this stuff right away. Things to look forward to next few episodes. We got manga sales of 2024, which will be
that
interesting.
recently came out. The Arcane rankings.
We'll be talking about the winter anime season that's coming up. Our anime of the month, Tokyo Godfathers, just a film.
Yep.
So that will be coming out on Christmas. And then that will also be the last episode of 2024. And then stay tuned for our first episode of 2025, which is always a fun episode because we review a little bit of like what we accomplished over the year, some fun highlights of the 2024 Nerdy Misfit year.
And what we're looking forward to doing.
And then, what we're looking forward in 2025.
So yeah, without further ado, we'll jump into Arcane Season 2. So it's worth noting, there'll be parts we discuss about Season 1. Matt watched Season 1 and 2 kind of
back to back
as a collective.
Yeah.
So he might have a little bit more of one,
memory,
remember stuff.
Yeah.
And two, maybe there might be a little bit of like, oh, did that happen in Season 1 or 2?
That is definitely going to happen for me.
Okay.
Just because I was even like when I was doing notes for this, I was like, did that happen in Season 1? Is that a parallel for Season 2? Did this happen? Did it not? Kind of thing. So bear with me for the listeners and the watchers for that. But yeah, Arcane Season 2 wrapped up, I think, about a week ago.
Yes.
Based on the recording of this episode. You're looking at a drama, sci-fi, steampunky, and Rotten Tomatoes got it setting at 100%. IMDb's got it set at a 9 out of 10. Yeah,
and it's a 9-episode series, both Season 1 and 2, 9 episodes. And Interestingly, they broke them up into acts. Each one came out as a 3-episode act. And I guess the first question is, how did you feel about the act structure?
I thought that was great, to be fair. Both from like a storyteller and a film perspective, I thought it was really good because especially when you're not releasing it all at once, it gives, if you're watching it weekly, you watch the 3 episodes, and it gives you a full week to breathe.
Yeah, you're kind of like taking it in.
Exactly. And I feel like after every end of each act, there was a plot twist or there was a cliffhanger, metaphorically and sometimes physically.
Yep.
Being like, hey, this is what's to come. And I think it's really good because collectively as a whole, you're doing 3 episodes, which is your story. That's a one story in itself.
Yep.
But then
you're setting up the rest of it.
You're setting it up. And then when you watch all 9 episodes together, there's an overarching story as well.
Yeah, you're following whether it's a character's arc journey throughout. I think season 1 did a much better job overall.
I would agree with that for sure.
They felt more fleshed out and cleaner.
Mm-hmm.
Season 2 did feel like there was a bit like I think the biggest one is Act 2 to 3, where it doesn't feel like there's as much. It could have just been all the same act. It didn't really feel like it was separated as much as the other previous ones.
You can make that an argument too for the beginning of season 2, though.
That's valid.
Where it does really
take off right from the end.
It literally takes off within 2 minutes. But then
they significantly
do a time jump by a few weeks. Yeah,
things change right away. So yeah, I guess we'll jump right in for. I want to jump into characters first.
Oh yeah,
because Matt mentioned that to me that Jinx was the only character
I don't know why though
was in League of Legends.
Like going through it, I'm like, oh, you're probably a champion. You're probably a champion. You might be a champion.
So I thought I'd quickly go through a list of champions that are 1 characters and 2 that are mentioned.
Okay.
So we have Vi and Jinx. Obviously these are characters in League of Legends. They're sisters in League of Legends lore.
Mm-hmm.
We got Caitlyn, Jace, Victor, Heimerdinger, Echo, Singe, Warwick, which is Vander.
Yep.
That's his in-game name in League is Warwick.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's ever name dropped that.
I think it is just like once.
But that's Warwick. Ambessa is actually only like a month or so new in the game. She's only been in the game for like a month and a half, but technically in the game now. Oriana, who is not name dropped, but is Singe's daughter at the end, the ballerina. She's a character in the game. And then Mel is coming to the game, which is Ambessa's daughter.
Okay, gotcha. Echo as well?
Echo's already in the game, yeah.
Okay.
And then there's mentions of with the Kindred Spirits, which Kindred is a character in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Janna, who is the protector spirit of Zon. We see the statue and the background where they end up spray painting it with Jinx instead.
Okay, yeah.
She's mentioned. She's a character in League. The Black Rose is a group of characters. We don't know. We don't know specifically which characters will be shown within the Arcane kind of lore.
Mm-hmm.
But from what we know that LeBlanc is the Deceiver, who we all believe is the character we saw messing with Mel in Act 2.
Okay.
Swain, Vladimir, Elise, Cassiopeia are all potential members of the Black Rose as well, which are all characters in League. And then the name drop of the 3 heads of Noxus was mentioned, which we know is Darius, Swain, and then there's a question mark for the last one. So that's all the characters that are kind of either full on in the story or mentioned.
Gotcha, okay.
And then there's some Easter eggs towards other characters, but I didn't really put those ones because that's more of an Easter egg and not so much that's a character that we know exists.
Gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, it's a good list. And in the world of Runeterra, obviously there's multiple regions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we focused here on Zon and Piltover. And now we also know about Noxus because that's where Ambessa came from, and we got hints towards it. And it's just mentioned, obviously, the Noxian army comes to help when Ambessa gets involved. But if you know things about the lore, we know that there's also a bunch of different regions as well that Noxus is also either, we don't know at this point if they've already fought or if they will be fighting or if they're currently in conflict with, because Noxus is kind of like the Roman Empire, I guess.
Okay.
Like they're very like authoritarian. Like they're like, we are power. Like the most powerful is who's in charge, and we'll make everyone kind of see it our way. That's kind of how they see things. I expect whatever they end up calling the new show to focus on Noxus, and it'll probably there's a few things they could do. They can either significantly focus on just like how Noxus is broken down, how its military works, et cetera, et cetera. But I expect it's going to probably focus on the conflict with Ionia, and that's because Ionia is kind of like the Asian region of Runeterra, and they've got a lot of very popular characters. They have a lot of like ninja characters, samurai. So it kind of sounds like a match made in heaven. I'm sure there's a lot of anime enjoyers watching this show. A lot of people who enjoy anime also play League. And I just think that that's going to be a big seller for in-game content as well. Like just from a financial standpoint, it makes the most sense. But Demacia is another big region that has conflict with Noxus as well that we could see. So just little fun facts for Matthew. I don't know if you expected that many characters to be.
Definitely most of the ones that were either main or supporting characters for sure.
Yeah, like had like their own proper stories. Yeah.
The one I was really hoping was one, but I wasn't 100% sure was Heimerdinger. Like he seemed to play a bit of important, but I wasn't sure if it was just like, to me, I was like, they cleaned up his animation too well. If he's not like a popular fan favorite character, for example.
In the League, he's like creates stuff. So like his big gimmick is he creates turrets, and the turrets fight with him.
Okay.
And he's got like a stun grenade he throws, and he shoots missiles.
Dope.
And his ultimate is he basically has an advanced version of one of those abilities. So he makes like a super turret, shoots a bunch of rockets, or chucks like a super mine.
That's epic.
But I guess we can jump right into Heimerdinger quickly. I don't know if you felt like this, but I thought Heimerdinger gave off some Yoda vibes.
Oh, definitely.
You know, because one, he's a race that he says doesn't really exist anymore.
He's super old in comparison to everyone.
And being involved in politics, which clearly he shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Looking at you, Yoda, like.
Too old for your time, sir.
But, yeah, so he's a Yordle, which in League of Legends, there's a bunch of different Yordle champions, but he's the only Yordle we see within the Arcane lore.
Okay.
And I just thought it was very interesting. That's kind of like one of the similarities I saw in other media is it was in this case, the power comes to his knowledge, right? He's intelligent. He's obviously an inventor. And he seems so much more focused on the politics and then holding stuff back instead of just letting society move forward, and then he just focuses on what he wants to do, which is create and stuff. I felt like that's what I got from him, especially when Jace first creates Hex Tech, and Heimerdinger's like, no, we shouldn't do that. And it's like, but the whole point of Heimerdinger is supposed to be like wanting to move forward, and that's the whole point of Piltover. It's like the city of tomorrow.
Yeah,
right.
The Coruscant.
Exactly. Like it's like supposed to be this advanced city, and they're supposed to continually be advancing and creating new stuff. And it just felt really weird that he was like so focused on not doing that and being scared of new, which you would think that he would be more on the other side of being like risks need to be taken to advance and stuff like that. But whatever. I'm getting a little all over the place. Let's start with your initial thoughts, Matt.
I mean, personally, I went to the show blind, knowing like next to nothing regarding League of Legends and Arcane itself.
Yep.
AKA because I never watched season 1, just never got around to it. It was one of those shows that I'm like, I missed the hype. I'll get back to it.
Yeah, they'll have a season 2.
They will. Yeah. I found that it was super interesting world, and I would love to see more of it. I thought the characters overall were really in depth and grew throughout the season. Obviously, season 1 and season 2 blend together for me because I did watch it back to back.
Yeah.
I do think the transitions of the end of season 1 and the beginning of season 2 was really like well done, and when people died in the show, you definitely felt it towards some of the characters.
Yeah, there wasn't too many deaths that were
useless.
Just to have deaths.
Yeah,
because that's another issue, right? There's being too scared to kill things, and then there's just killing for the sake of killing.
Yeah, I did kind of wish that like their friends at the beginning didn't die.
That was pretty tragic.
Like
though.
I was kind of hoping because I had a feeling
You got to see him again though.
it's true. Yeah, I knew Victor was gonna come back. I just had a feeling. I was like, he's not gonna be dead. Like it fits the story too well. But I was like really hoping for the other two.
Yeah, like the two kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, they were. I wish I got more of them. Like, I'm assuming they aren't really in League. Like, it's
No.
just kind of like
That was just like
to
expanding on Vi and
Yeah.
Jinx's lore. Victor was funny because Victor in the game is like a robot.
Oh,
Yeah, he's like a robot with his third arm that shoots a laser and whatnot. So when we who know of League saw Victor as just
a beast.
basically Victor as a crippled human.
Oh, yeah.
At the beginning, we're just kind of like, that's not how he's gonna end though, right? Because we were where
You guys are waiting.
they
for
did
him.
go a different path because Victor's lore, lore in League has been forever changing.
Mhm.
So it's very much a giant mess.
So why is that?
Just as new characters came out and new regions get created, just to try and make things fit the puzzle, things would change like that. Or if they ended up reworking a champion, they might change some of the lore, skin lines that affect the lore, etc. Just a bunch of things. Yeah, it's very messy. Victor has gone from being like someone that's for the people, like where he's just focused on advancing society, which is very similar to what it's like in Arcane, to wanting to turn everyone into robots because he believes that that's like the ultimate kind of like, like very, classic sci-fi trope of, if we're all under like this hive mind, if we're all one, like
Then
them,
peace will find itself.
it's
fine.
the ultimate existence or the ultimate being, like stuff like that. So that's he kind of was the middle ground where like that is kind of what he was trying to do, but he also was kind of good, and so it kind of fit. But he turned more into a almost like a cosmic level being instead of necessarily a robot. But
like a werewolf-esque, like
so Victor was but he was enjoyable. I liked him, and he said his famous voice line that he says, because in League, whenever you lock in a champion to play, they have like a voice line that they say.
Yeah.
And Victor's voice line is he says like for the glorious evolution or something along those lines. I think and he does finally say it in Act 2, I believe, with Jace, or Act 1 for Season 2. He says something along those lines. But his it was basically, he said his lock-in line, which was something that a lot of people were looking forward to. I think the in-game one is join the glorious evolution, speaking to people, but yeah.
Gotcha.
My first thoughts of the show overall, though, as someone who League is 15 years old at this point.
Crazy.
The show first aired 3 years ago. So 12 years of increasingly cooler cinematics. Riot obviously gave the fans an animated series, which if you ever get the chance to look at some of the cinematics, like they've come a long way. And I believe that the Arcane has been in the works since around the Jinx champion trailer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's been in the works for a much longer period of time than people expected. And then I have here in my notes, as someone who unfortunately played League for over a decade.
Unfortunately.
It was just something like this, like a TV show, is something that a lot of people have been looking forward to, especially with all the music videos and cinematics that Riot's released over the years. A lot of people are always like, Riot's better at making music and cinematics than they are at making like video games. And here we are. We are at a point where they have literally put the money on the table, $250 million for these 2 seasons, making it the most expensive animated TV series. Not to be mistaken with movies, because Pixar movies and
that's a whole different
and
breed of stuff. Yeah.
insanely expensive. But obviously, my initial thoughts is it looked great. The music was phenomenal, and I felt like it did a little bit of everything. It did something for OG fans of League, for current fans of League, but also made it interesting enough for people that don't even know this is from a video game to enjoy the series.
It, yeah.
It had really strong characters, decent story, and you don't even have to suffer playing League to enjoy it. That was the best part, I think, for a lot of people.
Do you think that people that really enjoyed League did suffer a little bit because the characters weren't towards those said origins, or
I think that perhaps people that really enjoyed some of those characters, maybe they weren't as pleased. I know that they also changed they literally changed the in-game outfits for some of the characters, like their base skin to match Arcane. So they changed like Jinx's base outfit to match Arcane's and stuff. So I know that some people like perhaps are not as big a fan of some of the changes that were forced on some of the characters in League, but I think overall it's just nice to have a set lore. Like, okay, this is the lore.
Yeah.
This is the canon to go by now. Right? So that's kind of
That's
nice.
why I introduced the multiverse.
Yeah, exactly. Jumping into art style, I feel like this one is pretty simple. Art style, character design, and we'll jump into animation at the same time. I felt like if you've watched any of their cinematics, and this is from Studio Fortiche, which is a French studio.
Fortiche. I don't know.
We've come to know this style from their cinematics that they've done for Riot already. And yeah, I thought every character, even if they changed the look slightly in terms of outfit or whatever, they still had the essence of that character from the game. You knew who they were. You could tell who they were instantly. And I thought that was really well done. Obviously, all the characters kind of have very unique styles to them. Even styles changing throughout the series as well.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
And animation was just some of the best 3D animation I've seen, especially from a TV show. So
yeah,
and I'm not a big 3D animation person
in general.
In anime, for example, there aren't very many anime that I'm like, oh yeah, it's 3D anime. I love it. I enjoy Beastars. Land of the Lustrous is also a very beautiful looking show, but for the most part, I don't watch many of the 3D animated ones. But they also don't have budgets like this.
That's true. I mean, 250 million.
So
yowza.
Yeah, it was very nice to look at.
Pretty much the same. I mean, I find all the characters to look really rad and have uniqueness to each of them between physical build, hair color, height.
Yeah. No, I think even just like Vi, you look at all the changes she's gone through.
Same with
Echo.
Jinx as well. Echo specifically as well.
Yeah. Obviously, we see Victor become more and more not human. Jay's kind of a different story. I think that was more of a mental boom.
Yeah. I mean, I enjoy the kind of like, I call it the paint splatter drawing effect.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. And it's really cool because there's like it wasn't an Easter egg when I watched it, but watching how she like looked at Victor in the first season, like when it does like the scribbling and stuff like that.
Yep.
He has like bigger ears and looks like a beast with like big eyes and stuff.
Oh, you're talking about Warwick? Or
Vander, sorry.
Yeah.
Vander. So like when she looks at Vander and she's like going like more off the deep end, she starts like seeing like the different drawings and stuff. Vander's is like bigger and bigger eyes and everything like that to like a subtle foreshadow of him becoming the beast, which I didn't know it was going to happen because I was just like, why is she drawing like her father figure like that?
Yeah, as someone people that played League and that have had little interest, I don't think you need to have a ton of interest, but if you've had a little interest in the lore of some of the League, you would know that Vander was Warwick and Warwick was Vander. So when we get introduced to Vander, me and a couple of my friends were like, he's going to become Warwick, right? Like,
yeah.
So there's a few things like that spread throughout that you almost have like an expectation of
when's it going to happen. Yeah.
Similar to Singe, we see his dead daughter in the weird situation or a state she's in that
the Mr. Freeze
esque style, and then he turns her into more of like a doll. So that's we know that's Oriana, and we're all like, when's Oriana coming? Like, when are we gonna see? Obviously, it's just more of a tease at the end, but there are elements like that throughout that we're kind of like, what's going on? When's that happening?
Moving on, we could do music and OST. I mean, the music hits.
Yeah, I think it's not even really a complaint. I just felt that the music montages perhaps happened just a bit too much. I liked all of the music, but I felt, especially in Act 2 specifically, there were so many moments where they did like there was a track playing and then they had like some sort of montage playing.
Okay.
And I just felt like if you do it 2 times, you're like, okay, it has a little bit more impact, but they were using it a lot.
Yeah.
That's probably my only big gripe, but it's not that the music was bad. It's the same thing when we critique something for having way too much slow motion or it's the same kind of line of that. It's like you're using this element too often. And I feel like part of that was also to save some budget on animation because like during a lot of those, it wasn't fully animated. It was more like clips.
Yeah.
The big one is like you think of like Echo and Jinx dancing. It just kind of
cut.
Yeah, exactly.
Cut. Yeah.
So part of that could have just been also to save monies for other scenes, but I did feel like that particular style was perhaps overused a bit, in my opinion.
That's fair.
But yeah, other than that, like all the music was great. I think Heimerdinger's song was probably my favorite. But there are a lot of really good songs.
I mean, I know this isn't season 1, but like the cameo of Imagine Dragons.
Oh, really that's just randomly out there. Yeah.
I was like, that's really weird, but it was really well animated. And
I
don't know if they used that clip for their music video because I think the French studio ended up doing their music video for this song. I haven't actually watched it yet.
Well, I remember that they for Worlds that year that's how they did the World song or introduced Arcane. They introduced Imagine Dragons in like the 3D animation style to introduce Arcane because like that Worlds basically just became a big commercial for Arcane.
Makes sense.
So they had that at the opening ceremony.
Yeah. But yeah, all right, the big hitters.
Yeah.
Plot and characters. I feel like the positive and negatives kind of get tossed in them,
yeah.
I can do my little spiel because I know yours is going to be more.
I didn't put anything significant for plot, so if you want to try and go through generally what the story is, and then we can discuss it.
I mean, more specifically, like I did more specific details. I think the duality of Vi and Jinx, aka Powder, is very well written.
Yeah.
Both because you see, like in comparison to how they are in season 1 to the end of season 2, they almost switch roles.
In some cases, yeah.
In some ways, yeah. Because like throughout the story, it's always shown that like Jinx is crazy.
Yeah.
Off the rails crazy kind of thing like that.
After Act 1.
After Act 1, yeah. And Vi is more like, this is what I got to do. Like she's very like stern by the book. And then it almost like switches because then Jinx takes on that older sister role, similar to how Vi used to.
Yeah.
And there's like dualities with that. And then Vi kind of, I don't want to say becomes a little bit more unpredictable in Act 3 a little bit, almost how Jinx used to be unpredictable.
Not to the same extent.
Not to the same extent, but...
Yeah, Vi starts going through her own little dark phase, literally. But the hilarious part is part of it kind of feels like it's because of a breakup.
Kind of was. It kind of was.
And it's a bit much, but...
Yeah. But, you know, it's you can use that concept for the extreme of her losing someone else.
For sure. I just think overall, Vi, even when she joins the police or whatever they're called, I can't remember what the term is for them, but she's like, yeah, we're grabbing Jinx. Like, that's still her sister at the very end. She's always treating, like, even when she's like, nope, she's the enemy, we take her out.
Yeah.
She still kind of
realizes that it's her sister.
Yeah. She's always going to be like, okay, I need to protect my sister. She's in there. Like, I can save her, blah, blah. And this is one issue for a negative that comes for me is which when we see Jinx finally in prison, and she's definitely like given up now.
Yeah.
Jinx has given up on life. And Vi's like, I haven't given up on her. I'm going to save her, blah, blah. And she steals the key to break her out of prison. And then Jinx Uno reverse cards her and puts her in prison. And Jinx basically, there's no way that Vi did not understand what Jinx was saying. Jinx basically says, I'm going to off myself in GTA.
Mm-hmm.
And Vi's like, no, don't do that. And then Jinx goes off to attempt to do that. And then Caitlyn shows up and sees that obviously Vi's in jail, and she breaks her out, but lets her out. And she's like, oh, like, I messed up again, blah, blah. And then she has time to smash.
Yep.
But this whole time we know that Vi's kind of just always got that ringing of like, I need to help my sister. And her sister just told her what she was going to do, but she's got time to do. I just felt like it was very, I don't mind, like, I know some people thought the whole, you know, sex scene with animated characters is cringe, but I thought just the timing was bad.
The timing did not make any sense. I understand it was like them like reconciling kind of thing. Yeah, but it was like, Wrong place, wrong time, girls.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
there are bigger fish to fry right now.
Yeah, so wasn't the biggest fan of that. I thought that it kind of was off-putting and didn't make sense for the situation.
Yeah, for that particular scenario. Could have been like any other place.
Yeah, any other place, any other time, okay, but really, like her sister just told her that.
Quick makeout session, I get it, but like, move on.
Yeah, kiss and let's go find Jinx. Or
Yeah,
something,
exactly. But then that can also go into Caitlyn's character because Caitlyn wanted to take down Jinx, like didn't care about Jinx to the extreme that Vi does. But
for sure, but I feel like that point, that's when even Caitlyn is like Jinx isn't the problem. I think that's kind of like where Caitlyn's also been like, okay, she's not what the issue is.
Yeah,
there's a different issue, and obviously that at that point it's Ambessa and Victor.
Mm-hmm. Going on to that, I mean, the last few episodes were interesting in a way because they introduced the whole multiverse story and like the different timelines.
Yeah, they go full Spider-Man on it.
Which like usually I'm a big fan of, but it was just like we were so far in this story that I felt it was almost, this is kind of a negative, whereas didn't feel out of place, but it felt out of place.
I feel like it worked because it was telling the story of where everyone was.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel really bad for Jace because Echo got to go to this place where some of his friends, Vi was dead, unfortunately.
Everyone else was still alive, though. It was fun.
Happy, Vander's alive, and like Echo's like getting to dance, enjoy life a bit, and then Jace is just suffering, man. But it was also cool to see. We saw one go, well, two, I guess, because Heimerdinger's with Echo, right? We saw them go to a place where Hextech was never created, and things went
well.
Oh, for the most part, well.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see Jace go to the complete opposite side of the spectrum of like, Hextech was created, but Hextech went really, really, really wrong. And that's like that side. And it's like, when they both come back, it's like, which side, what's going to happen?
Which way do we go? Yeah.
So it kind of fit the vibe. And it also helped explain certain elements of the end of the story, because at the very beginning of the show in season 1, we see Jace and his mom stuck in a blizzard. Mm-hmm. And we see an Arcane user show up and gives him a rune and help save them or whatever. Fans, when it first came out, thought that was a character named Rise.
Okay.
And obviously at the end of the series, we learn that in every timeline or whatever, that's Victor giving Jace that rune. So it's like...
It's a canon event style.
Yeah, it gets complicated because obviously Victor somehow is there to give him that, even though that's not what Victor is like.
Yeah.
But obviously in the future, that is what Victor...
It's like Kang.
He's
there. He's there no matter what.
It gets a little confusing, but it was definitely like, whoa.
I think if they explored
finished the circle.
If they explored that a little bit more,
it would have been better for explanation.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I agree. Overall, the story, though, I guess, to give a quick, we follow a set of characters. Piltover and Zahn are part of 2 cities that are part of the same area. We got an upper city and the lower city. Lower city, as you would traditionally, is treated like garbage and looked down on. Upper cities like better, higher quality living, blah, 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 blah. And we follow characters from each set of cities, and just as they progress through and how things from the upper city affect them and how things in the lower city are affecting the higher ups, and basically how they come together and how the drama breaks down from that, right? Like we have
the repercussions.
We have the initial of the kids breaking in and finding elements of Arcane and helping you could almost help say that Jinx and them helped create Hextech in a way, helped Jace create Hextech when they initially break in to steal stuff. Which is, in theory, I don't like using this term, but in theory, a canon event, because when Echo goes to the other timeline, he sees that still has to happen. That event still happens, and that's how it causes him not to want to do it, right? But then, obviously, Vi dies. So, but yeah, we just follow a bunch of characters as they go through life and just what life throws at them and how each character handles that obstacle. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we have 2 sisters whose parent dies. They go their separate ways, and they become very different people. Yeah. One who's basically mental breaks and is taken in by Also someone at this point whose mental is also broken because he wasn't necessarily a bad guy. He kind of
unstable.
He's unstable, but he also was like had Zahn's best interests in mind. Yeah, my headset's stuck.
My gosh. There you go.
Figured it out.
There we go.
But
welcome back.
Yeah, he was kind of an anti-hero in a way, right? Where he was like, yeah, he was a villain to Piltover for the most part, but he did have Zahn's interest in mind. It's just he was doing it in bad ways with like the whatever, I can't remember. What was it called? The drug that he had circulating.
Oh, the purple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But obviously, and then he takes over Jinx's life at a very vulnerable time and kind of doesn't exactly help her in a good way. Vi goes to prison because she ends up going in jail for a while. And yeah, and then we also follow some just geniuses like inventors as they create a new technology that ends up having a very large effect on everyone within this region of Runeterra, which is Hextech. And at the same time, Singe is making Chemtech. The dirty version.
Dirty, yeah. Definitely parallels there too, obviously.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And fun things from that we get is we get the suits that some of the bad guys are wearing. Those used to be an item in the game called the Chem Tank, I believe. Turbo Chem Tank. And we got to see characters wearing Turbo Chem Tanks fighting, which was kind of cool.
Okay.
Obviously, Jace, we got to see his hammer, his iconic hammer that also goes into a ranged weapon, which I
presume Vi's got the gloves.
Yeah, she's got the gauntlets. We got to see Jinx with her minigun, Jinx shooting her big rocket, grenades. So we got to see the whole deal with that. Caitlyn is a sniper. We got to see her use a gun. Unfortunately, yeah, that's what she do. She shoots a gun.
Nice.
And she has a net, which we did get used a few times. Yeah, a lot of cool stuff. I guess my next question for you would be, was there a particular character that you enjoyed following the most, or just that you liked the design the most?
I really liked Heimerdinger. I thought
Heimerdinger.
I don't know. I love anytime he was on the screen. I was like, yeah, I freaking love this guy.
Love Heimerdinger. Fun Easter egg from Heimerdinger in season 2, Act 1. Him and Echo are breaking into the Piltover like higher up. I don't remember what the building's called. And he says the Brambleback is out of the jungle. And the Brambleback happens to be a jungle beast within League of Legends.
Ah, nice.
It's also known as the red buff, but that was kind of a funny thing when he said that. I lolled.
I just like the duo. Like him and Echo, I think were like a good
They're
duo.
a really nice duo.
And that was a fun story
and since you like a lot of dualities, obviously, Echo is Heimerdinger's redemption. He kind of didn't help Jason Victor like he probably should have, and maybe could have avoided the significant issues that are caused because of that. And by helping Echo, he's kind of redeemed himself.
I get it, man. Count Dooku went to the dark side, so then Yoda had to train someone else to try and make up for it. I get it.
How do you feel about his sending Echo away? Do you think he got zipped to another universe or timeline or what? Or do you think he just is dead?
I would hope that he got zipped to a different universe. And to me, it's almost weird because he's one of the supporting characters I feel didn't really get an ending because he literally just got zipped.
And he was always more of a supporting, right? So he didn't necessarily need as big of a story.
But I feel like Echo just kind of accepted that he was gone.
I think Echo just had too much going on.
I agree for him to realize that.
It would have been nice if maybe we see Echo doing something to be like, I'm going to find Heimerdinger. Something along those lines would have been nice.
Remembering him in some aspect.
But also seeing him sit at the stairs where in the other universe he was with Jing. Jinx was sitting as Echo left.
Yeah.
There was kind of a nice mirroring there as well.
For sure, yeah, I would agree with that.
I think Echo is probably my favorite character. Mostly because we see him at the beginning with the kids, and then all of a sudden he's gone, and then he's part of the leader of the Fireflies or whatever they're called, that are really just vigilante-esque people trying to save or trying their best to make sure that Zahn is a decent place and has the whole tree fort set up, and he just cares. And then obviously we have this storyline where he meets Heimerdinger, and now Heimerdinger's like, whoa, this is amazing. I'm going to help you and help this little society you're creating.
Yeah. That's probably one of my favorite scenes, to be honest, is Echo and Heimerdinger's like first initial meeting, because Echo's got like a twisted ankle, and Heimerdinger's like, wow, this is really good technology. I'm going to help you. You're like, ah. But then you also feel bad because that's when he just got kicked off the council too.
Yep.
Which I was like, dang.
He's at his lowest.
Yeah.
And then we see obviously Echo. His whole goal is to save because the tree is being corrupted by the hex tech, and he's like, "How are we gonna fix this?" And then goes to another universe or another timeline, and wow, that scene hit hard. That whole episode was pretty hard hitting. And then we come back, and unfortunately, we don't get to see as much as I did see an interview with some of the animators discussing how they I don't know if they did create or they just cut it, and it was it was animated, but they were supposed to have some scenes of Crazy Jinx, and Echo working together when they go to save people at Piltover.
Okay.
In the final battle, because we see Echo show up to save her from grenading or jumping using his Z drive, which, fun fact, that is actually Echo's ult in the game.
Sick.
Is going back a few seconds.
The 4 seconds every time she tries to like end it.
So that was cool to see him make that device, which he uses in game, and he goes to save Jinx. Eventually saves her, and there was supposed to be more that was a cutout for time, obviously, of them like going through kind of a similar montage that we saw of like him and Jinx painting like and help with the whole Vi thing, where it was going to be similar but painting the balloons and whatnot to go and fight.
Gotcha. Okay.
Which would have been nice to see those parallels as well from the other timeline. And then we also got to see Echo get his iconic weapon that he has in the game, which we learn is from the like clock tower.
Okay.
Because the clock tower breaks, and he ends up catching it's like one of the smaller hands because the clock tower has like the main clock, but it had a couple smaller clocks, whatever they were for. They could have been like the seconds or whatever. But he uses that. So ironically, the guy that can time travel is using a clock from a hand as his weapon, which is kind of cool. And he was trying really hard to save people.
He was.
He was popping off. So I definitely liked him a lot. I did find moments of just Vi and Kate being annoying. I felt like some of it was obviously rushed, like the way their relationship disintegrated, but then came back, and
there was not really room to breathe, in my opinion, when it came to that relationship specifically.
Yeah. So that was like, that could have just been fixed with more time, I think. I don't think it was necessarily bad. But just looking through some of these characters, I don't think anyone else. I really enjoyed Mbessa. I thought she kind of brought this like devil on Caitlyn's shoulder-esque vibe, right? Where she shows up. She's a very strong, powerful general from a very powerful nation. And she's like, hey, I'll help you. Do this. And she's also like, as Caitlyn and Vi break up, she's like there to like, pick up the pieces.
Yeah.
Right? And she's like, oh, I'm going to corrupt you and mold you into what I need. But I just really liked the part that Mbessa played. She kind of played like this motherly-ish role for Caitlyn as she just lost her mom.
Yeah.
But also is like, hey, I'll teach you to be strong and how to be a strong, independent.
I'll corrupt you in the process.
Mbessa is a very strong and powerful woman.
Yeah.
But she don't take shit from no one.
Amen, sister.
And it don't matter if it's someone she just trained. Looking at you, Caitlyn, she will kill you if you cross her. And then we do end up seeing that fight play out.
Yep.
It is just interesting. There were some elements, obviously. I think what was the because I found this to be somewhat confusing when the Black Rose gets heavily involved. Obviously, we get hints that Mbessa's hiding from someone or trying to hide from someone.
Yeah, and there's foreshadowing of that to be like, oh, like you're here. Why?
How did you feel about overall, like, kind of the involvement of the Black Rose? Because I
I missed something.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm being honest, like when I was watching it, I was like, oh, this is cool. And then it just kind of kept coming back. And then I literally skipped back. I was like, did I miss something that like properly introduced this? And it's just, it wasn't there.
I did think it was a bit confusing. Also just the way she died was also a bit weird considering she's fighting Caitlyn and Mel, And then all of a sudden Mel like goes full Arcane and lets the Black Rose take her, and who I'm assuming is LeBlanc. But then Mel saves her from that, but then she still dies.
Yeah.
That was a bit weird.
I just feel like I missed something.
Yeah. I feel like that one's maybe a bit messy, but I did like how Mbessa was the way they brought in Noxus for the future.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm excited to see... I'm both excited to see how they handle wrapping up anything that maybe weren't tied as nicely in a bow, or if they just say, nope.
Yep. Brand new story, whatever.
Yeah, like Mbessa was from Noxus, and now this is Noxus. This is the region that she's from, and these are the characters we're now introduced to. We'll see how that goes. I wrote down some Easter eggs. There are tons.
Yeah.
Tons. So I'm not even close to getting through that many, but I'll cover some enjoyable ones and some big ones. So yeah, there were some Easter eggs that went from in-game characters getting just obviously their main story told to tip of the caps to some characters, in some cases literally. So big thing is, maybe we'll put a link in the description for this, is if you actually followed the opening, you would see things change in the opening as things developed through the story.
Mm-hmm.
Big one being if there was a character that died, maybe they were in the opening and then all of a sudden that spot's empty, or some stuff like that, where a decision that was made that affected a character in a big way, then it would start to show that.
I will say the intro also does show a good amount of foreshadowing with like Victor having like the mask and becoming like a new thing. Even in season 2, when Jinx, like, it's the most cliche thing in history of like moving the giant flag, I was like, oh, there's a revolution that she's going to be leading is showing up.
There were a lot of foreshadowing things like that too in general in the show. There are a lot of clips of Caitlyn where all you see is her with one eye.
Okay.
Like, a big one is when she goes to the prison and frees Vi.
Mm-hmm.
She goes up to the bars and you only see one eye.
Interesting.
And there's a couple more scenes similar to that where Caitlyn goes up to something and you only see half her face.
That's sick.
Obviously foreshadowing that she ends up losing one eye. We do also see some abilities that are in the game be used by certain champions. We see like Warwick W being used, which is Blood Hunt, where he can smell the blood and he visually sees the blood trail of like the scent. We see Victor use his laser to break down a door. We see Jinx Rocket, obviously. We also see some characters use voice lines, like Victor in his Glorious Evolution. We also see Jinx call Victor a Machine Herald, which is Victor's title as the character.
Okay.
He's Victor the Machine Herald, so that was kind of interesting. I mentioned Victor's famous voice line. Isha, the girl that was kind of like Jinx's sister, was wearing a hat very similar to Teemo's hat in the video game. Episode 7, we see a wheel that actually has a bunch of esports teams logos on it. This is in episode 7, season 2.
I did enjoy that Isha, even like the picture we have on screen here. It's you see inspiration almost from the two characters that pass away in the beginning of season 1. Like, it's kind of almost a mix because she has like that dirty brown hair, like the one guy and like a chiseled chin, and then she's wearing like the goggles on top. That references the other character,
the other thing
obviously.
Is, how many times did you see Jinx trying to save the day or do something by blowing herself up?
Mm-hmm.
And then she's the one who actually ends up doing it.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like following Jinx's lead in a way and actually does it. We got to see different references to jungle camps. Like I mentioned, Heimerdinger says Brambleback has left the jungle. But we also see in Caitlyn's home, her family went on like a hunt, and they have like their prize of their hunt, which is actually the Raptors, which is another jungle camp within the video game. We see Jin's mask and a piano and stage that looks very similar to a cinematic we've seen before. Orianna hinted heavily throughout the season, and then we finally see her at the end. We see her shoulder looking at her like little ballerina music box. Orianna's a ballerina. Kind of makes sense. We see Mbessa using runes across her like armor to protect her from magic. And in League, there's literally an item for this for magic resistance called the Karnik Rukern, and it's just interesting to see her using that as an action, because it's an item you can buy in game to
Yeah.
literally try and take less damage from magic users. So we saw Echo make his iconic Z drive as well as getting his weapon. We got hints. This is more of like a potential future. We saw Caitlyn reviewing the maps of the Hex Core and see that there are some air ducts that Jinx could have potentially escaped. Also, at the end, we do see a ship leaving.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people believe that was Jinx that was potentially on that ship, and maybe she ends up in one of the other regions. And the big one at the end, which is we see the three-eyed raven of Swain, kind of keeping his eye on what happened overall and the aftermath. Just another big hint to Noxus, considering he's one of the leaders, if not the main honcho of Noxus. So
cool.
But yeah, so many things. You could rewatch the show multiple times and pick up so many things, so many little things, so many big things. So definitely a fun thing, I think, for rewatch value in terms of if you're a League fan or potentially you go deep diving into the lore for whatever reason and you like start picking off things as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I guess before we wrap up, I guess we should talk about what I think is the most controversial thing, which is the overall, I guess, Act 3 of the season.
The pacing.
Which is, some people did not feel overall satisfied with the ending.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the ending was decent. I don't think it was perfect. I think there were elements that definitely felt rushed. I think a big thing that some people said is 1 episode per act more, and it probably could have been a little bit cleaner. And I kind of agree with that.
Yeah.
Just that little bit extra to wrap up some people's stories beforehand and to give that little bit of extra content for Victor, for that's kind of storyline as well.
Yeah.
For why the reasons why certain characters made decisions like partnerships. I don't think it just didn't seem like Mbessa needed Victor, nor did Victor need Mbessa.
Yeah.
And there was also a point, okay, let's say Mbessa and Victor work together. Mbessa gets her army that she wants. She definitely greeted. She wanted more power because she got what she wanted. She got this like unkillable army that was going to fight for her. And she opts to keep going to try and get more and more and more, where she could have just kind of been like,
cool.
Hey, Noxus, look, I got this new like unkillable army, but no.
Greedy.
She greeted.
Classic
she wanted more power.
villain.
Wanted more power. I do think it did get pretty crazy at the end. We had a couple characters that also leave on the side of like, did they or didn't they? Which I know that not a lot of people are big fans of that. But the biggest takeaway for me is that we saw basically a battle of 3 different sides, and overall nobody won.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of like a good story in itself, where sometimes and most of the time when it comes to battles, nobody wins. Even if there is a victor, it doesn't feel like it.
There's no winning in war at the end of the day.
Exactly. And there was probably a more diplomatic solution that could have been figured out if certain characters handled or had made different decisions along the way.
Dang.
Yeah. But it was really good overall.
Yeah, I mean, personally, if you're looking for a show that has decent world building, good character development, aesthetically pleasing shots, animations, I personally, not knowing anything about League, would recommend this show. But I would secondarily recommend the steps to watch it in 3-episode chunks, give it some breathing, and then continue, rinse and repeat.
Yeah, fair enough. I think one thing that for me is that's really exciting is just knowing that there's so many other regions, and so the game has like 60 characters in the game.
Wow.
There's so many stories that can be told.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking forward to see where they go next and whose story gets told.
Mm-hmm.
And just to see another beautifully animated and
Solid.
it does feel like it may have been carried slightly by the animation and music, but I do promise the story overall was also very solid.
Yeah, definitely. 100% agree.
Like Matt said, someone who hasn't played League, go check it out. And we'll get Matt to go to Nerdy Misfit Gaming and maybe check out some League.
One day, folks.
So if you're not already, subscribe to us here at the Nerdy Misfits for more podcasts every Wednesday.
Then jump over to the Nerdy Misfit Gaming, where you can watch some of our fellow nerdy misfits, Eddie, Troy,
And
Connor,
Matt.
and us in the future, maybe, where we'll be gaming.
Yeah, and don't forget to drop a comment, like, and
Subscribble.
It helps us out a lot. And honestly, we're looking forward to another great year of some podcast content.
Heck yeah, I'm pumped. Thank you guys for the constant support, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Yeah, boy.
Bye.
TNMP, the Nerdy Misfit Podcast. Don't forget to join the island by dropping a follow. Thank you, and see you next week.